The other thing that we want to look at is when the baby smiles, it should be symmetrical. So sometimes it could be asymmetrical. It could maybe have something to do with the cranial nerve for the muscles, but it can also be when the palate is tipped. So it might be moving off to one side. Again, that can be corrected. The jaw, the chin should come down. You know, baby doesn't really have much of a chin. Like this part of the face, there's not a lot there because they don't have teeth yet. So it's kind of like babies are all eyes. Then later they develop teeth, they start chewing, so the lower jaw starts to form. But we want to be able to have a nice, strong jaw. We want to be able to make sure the mandible or the maxilla, where the teeth are going to come in, have a lot of space. The teeth come in straight. These things are really important. These things can be corrected at a young age. Hopefully, you know, it might even prevent them having to get braces later in life. I think it's really interesting, since we're talking about braces, if you are familiar with Weston Price Foundation, I mentioned the cookbook called Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon that has the 2 recipes for the homemade formula, which is much more nutritious than store-bought formula. But that Sally Fallon created a lot of this. She's with the Weston Price Foundation. So Weston Price was a dentist who had traveled around into these into the islands, and he saw what these people looked like. They had a very strong jaw. They had really great teeth. They didn't have cavities. The teeth came in straight. They didn't have any issues with overcrowding. And what he found was that these people they had an indigenous diet. And the minute flour and sugar was introduced to the islands, they started having a lot of malformations of the jaw. Sometimes when the upper jaw might not fit the lower jaw, started seeing a lot of overcrowding and definitely a lot more dental decay. So the diet was so significant in the shape of the jaw and the teeth. And I think that, you know, that's something that we need to consider before we have a baby, if it's possible. You know, conscious conception is what I call it. So I think it's a really great idea if parents can detox at least 6 months before they conceive. That just allows for the baby to have the best genetic blueprint. So the father contributes just as much as the mother. So a lot of times everything gets placed on the mother. I don't think that's fair. Father contributes a lot to the development, the birth of the baby itself, and how not just what it inherits in terms of its look, but it's also can develop its gut health. So a lot of people say, well, what kind of diet should I be eating? And I always say, well, you have to look at least 3 generations, minimum, 3 generations on either side to know what is the best diet for you. I don't think there is one diet that's perfect for everybody. I do want to mention one thing, and this is just based on an Italian study. I want to say this because I think it's important, but the reason I want to say that is because I know being a vegan right now seems to be very popular. And so an Italian OBGYN had done a study and found that when a young girl is on a vegan diet, every girl is already born with the number of ovaries it's going to have, but they're already developing, right? So if a young girl goes on a vegan diet and later has children, the studies show that those children are going to have a lower IQ from a mother who was on a strictly vegan diet. So I think that diet is hugely important for our future generation. I think we need to look at food that is clean, as few chemicals as possible. We need to avoid high fructose corn syrup. Learn to read labels. It's in soda. It's in a lot of condiments. It's in a lot of things. This is not a good sugar. There's nothing wrong with sugar. There's a lot of great natural sugars. We find them in fruit. We get coconut sugar is a nice sugar. It doesn't even spike your sugar. Like it's safe for diabetics. It's got a very low glycemic index. Date sugar is another choice. I think organic cane sugar is another option. I think artificial sugars are neurotoxins and should be avoided. We also need to get rid of seed oils. Almost everything has canola oil in it. Good quality olive oil. You know that it is good quality when you refrigerate it. It can get a little cloudy maybe. Sometimes it gets even a little hard. But it's not as liquid. If it's very liquid and it doesn't change after you've refrigerated it, it's probably been cut with a cheaper oil like canola oil. I think canola oil should, all seed oils, sunflower oil, these all should be avoided. Hydrogenated oils, they damage the lining of your arteries. And a lot of people think that cardiovascular disease is from fat. I can tell you that saturated fat is very good for you. Saturated, people think, oh my gosh, you're clogging my arteries. What that means is that every carbon molecule is saturated, meaning there's a hydrogen attached to all of it. So it's a very stable oil. So if you're cooking with good quality lard, tallow, rendered fat, ghee, which is clarified butter, these are really, really good fats to cook with. The other options, again, I think are olive oils is a very good oil, coconut oil, and avocado oil. But again, you need to stay away from corn oil, peanut oil, soybean oil, canola oil. These are very damaging to your health. And the thing about bad fat, and it's going to be in all processed foods and fast food, when you eat bad fat, you don't eliminate it. It can stay in your body for years. So it just accumulates and just recirculates. So when you eat sugar, at least you can burn it off. Sugar you can burn off, but bad fat, which is in a lot of processed foods, takes a long time to eliminate. So I think just making those two transitions from healthier oils for cooking and eating, it's also good brain food, and eliminating high fructose corn syrup. So those are some things you can do before you plan to have a baby. Stay away from processed food, eat whole food, just to give your baby the best genetic blueprint.